Washington, D.C., having failed miserably to convince the people of America or the world that military force was necessary on behalf of the people of Venezuela, has now attempted to flip the script. We covered this. They are attempting now to say that we must invade Venezuela to protect us from some make-believe notion that Hezbollah is planning an attack or something like that. Well, written in the subtext of all of their lies, they lead off with the evil socialist dictatorship. America, the United States of America, is a socialist dictatorship. Venezuela is not. And in today's video, I'm going to show you step by step, it's going to take some time, why they have lied to you. And they have used tricks of language and psychological operations to convince you that you live in a free market capitalist society, and that's why we're so wealthy and everything's so great, and why things are terrible in Venezuela. Now, we've already established the U.S.-led economic war against Venezuela. That's fact. You can look up the sanctions on your own. I'm not going to bother to link those in this video. They are in a dozen others. When the U.S. put the sanctions out, I should say, that's when everything started to fall apart in Venezuela. Period. When they cratered the price of oil. That, in conjunction with the paramilitaries from Colombia, together, all created the crisis in Venezuela. They have been trying to take over that country for 20 to 25 years. It's not something that's this administration or the last administration. It's been going on for a long time. Now, socialism. The first thing that we need to do to even have that conversation is establish a baseline. What is socialism and what is capitalism? Well, basically the idea is this. Economic socialism is the idea that government must use force of law to control the free markets. And what we believe to be economic free market capitalism is the idea that business must be allowed to operate independent of government control or influence. The terms laissez-faire come to mind. King of the Hill, caveat emptor, these types of things where government just says hands off and just let whatever happen with business happen. Now, in other videos, I have talked about this thing called taxed, regulated, approved, insured, inspected, licensed, secured, and subsidized, otherwise known as trails. There is nothing that happens in our free market, quote-unquote free market, that is not run through and approved by Washington, D.C. first, and it is not optional. None of those things are optional. Wherever you're sitting right now, wherever you are, reach out and touch something, whether it's the side of your car, or the drink in your hand, or your desk, or the computer, or the phone in your hand. All of that would not be in your possession without the approval of Washington, D.C. in some way, shape, form, or another. The very money that you used to buy it is printed by the Fed and is given its value by the petrodollar. We can, in this country, print money and it magically has value. That does not apply to any other country in the world. It is not the same set of rules being applied to the U.S. that is being applied to anywhere else, including Venezuela. We don't back up our money with gold, unlike Venezuela. We are living in a dream world because of military might. Now, I'm going to walk through later in the video all of the different things that are guaranteed to you in the Venezuelan constitution, including establishing marriage to be between the union of a man and a woman. But we are going to cover some other things real quick. Now, there is this idea out, pardon me for 1 second here, that people say, well, socialism really is when government directly controls business. Well, if government directly, our government would directly control business, they would be directly liable for the things that that business would do or would not do. And they can't have that. So it's much easier to make people believe that they're in control while just causing all sorts of regulations and taxes and approval processes to control the business, but not directly, so that if anything does bad happen, the government isn't held liable for it. So that's how they get out of that game. Now, this video, unlike most, I have had to take some notes on. Usually, pardon me for 1 second here, I can do the entire video that you guys see from memory. But with everything going on these days, especially with this, it's going to take a while. Now, in Venezuela, there is something called a minimum salary. We have a minimum wage here. A lot of pro-business folks say that that's a bad idea. We shouldn't have a minimum wage. Well, in Venezuela, the minimum salary is directly connected to the cost of this basket of 50 basic items you need to survive. So if businesses in Venezuela would raise prices of these basic 50 things, your salary would go up directly in relation to it, preventing business from taking advantage of certain dynamics. Like, for example, in this country, it's not legal for Walmart, Target, Piggly Wiggly, Safeway, Winn-Dixie to right at or around the first of the month to jack up prices 300% because everybody's getting their government checks. That's illegal. That's government control of business. You can't be the purveyor of goods and have people walk into your store and not have anything marked with prices. You can't have them just pick something up, take it up to the front and say, how much is this? That's illegal. Because, of course, that would be rife with abuse. People would, eyeball somebody and say, well, that person looks rich, we're going to charge them more. And as far as social protections go, Social Security, biggest line item out of our government. We hand out this money, Medicare, Medicaid, and and food stamps and all this kind of stuff. That controls business. It controls people's money. It controls their lives. And talking about gasoline, I know people think that the guy down the road running the gas station controls those prices, he has no control whatsoever. He can't just go down there one day and say, it's a free market capitalist society I live in, so I'm going to charge $10 a gallon today. The government prevents him from doing that. And go ahead and Google grocery store pricing laws. There are all sorts of regulations that grocery stores and all sorts of services, they have to follow. The Robinson-Patman Act, the Sherman Act, all of these different things that we take for granted every day in our country that basically control business through force of law by government. I know you think that we are successful because of the free market. We absolutely are not. We are successful because we can print money out of nowhere and it magically, all of a sudden, has value. How do we know this? QE1, QE2, QE3, QE4. When our system failed miserably in 2008, no problem. We just started adding zeros into computers and saying money is there that wasn't there before, and it automatically has value. We see the problem in Venezuela when they tried to do that. When they tried to print money, what happened? Inflationary spiral. The worth, I should say, of the bolivar crashed. If we had those rules, the same thing would have happened here in 2008. And ironically, this concept, too big to fail, Hugo Chavez actually laughed at George Bush and said, it's amazing to me that you promote all of this false fake idea of this free market, and then when everything falls apart, you resort to socialism, which means basically they wrote a giant check on behalf of the American people to all of these banks that failed to maintain the illusion. And it is an illusion. This slide I had up here, you can't sell something in our country without it going through this process. It's called express warrant of merchantability. That means if you're selling a blender, for example, it has to be a blender. It has to, in some way, shape, or form, do what you say it does. And if it doesn't, you can be taken into court. And we have all of these avenues in civil liability because of socialism. The government sets the rules. The government prints the money. The government tells businesses what it can and what it can't charge. I would really like someone, if they can, either in the comment section or make your own video, and tell me where I'm wrong about this. If anyone out there has ever started a business, and I know a lot of you have, you know what I'm talking about. It is an exercise in futility trying to deal with all of the regulations and the processes and the taxes and everything that you have to do just to get stood up, just to open your doors. So if we're successful with all of that being in place, how can socialism be the reason that Venezuela failed? Civil liability is a huge deal in this country. The government is involved in all aspects of it. And some make the allegation that socialism is taking from the rich and giving to the poor. And that when you do that, that's how things fail. Well, what do you think our tax system is? Our tax system is a progressive tax system. The more you make, the more they take. Marx would be proud of our tax system. So once again, I don't see any function in America, in the United States of America, in business that remotely resembles just straight up free market capitalism. We are socialist top to bottom. Now, the dictator part is a lot more complicated. Our president is elected by the Electoral College. Those people that make up the Electoral College are chosen by the RNC and the DNC. That is established by the state legislatures in all 50 states now. There's a concept in law that says, the non-delegation doctrine is what it's called, that when government is given a responsibility to do something, it may not delegate that to other interests. Well, our legislatures, state legislatures, are supposed to be picking those electors. And when they delegate that to the RNC and the DNC and let them pick those electors, that takes it out of the hands of the people. Because it wouldn't matter who you put into government. The control of Washington, D.C. is now in Washington, D.C. It is no longer in the hands of the people. Therefore, it's a dictatorship. Period. They work together, they collude, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is learning that the hard way. She's gone there and has realized that Pelosi and the Democrats are in collusion with the Republicans to foment a narrative. And she's realized that she's banging her head against a wall. Now, what I would like to do, since I know there's a lot of you that already have your mind made up about what you think is good and evil. I went through the Venezuelan Constitution, and I am going to show you things that are in it. And then you tell me what you think afterward is good and evil. Constitutionally, Venezuela, Articles 32, Sections 2 and 4, 59, 75, and 77 establishes marriage to be the holy union of a man and a woman. Article 76 protects the life of an unborn child in all cases from the moment of conception. Article 76 also obliges the mother and father to raise, train, educate their children, and the same article obliges children to care for their parents in old age. Article 114 bans all forms of usury and speculation and hoarding, just like in the Bible. Article 59 protects the rights of the father and mother to receive religious education, the children to receive religious education in accordance with their conviction. Article 104, teachers must be of good moral character. Now this is in their constitution, not some law. Articles 130 and 134 requires the citizens of Venezuela to defend their nation with arms if necessary. Article 43 bans the death penalty. Article 46 bans torture. Article 60 bans things like revenge porn and the paparazzi. Article 69 bans the extradition of Venezuelan citizens. Article 28 prohibits the government from classifying material regarding their own citizens, meaning they can't go out and surveil you and take pictures of you and get information on you and then say, oh, I'm sorry, we can't reveal that, it's classified. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional, pardon me. Article 115, property rights are guaranteed. Article 119 acknowledges the native people of Venezuela and protects their rights. You see, they acknowledge that they are the illegal immigrants to that region. Speaking of that, Article 40 reserves constitutional rights to its citizens only. Nobody can go into Venezuela, enter there illegally, and then demand to be protected by their constitution, like here. Articles 87, 88, and 89 establish work as a social fact and declare it a right and a duty. Article 88 declares, housewives are workers and entitled to Social Security. Article 5, sovereignty, meaning control, ultimate authority, resides in the people of Venezuela. Article 11 declares the sovereign territory of Venezuela to belong to the people, and Article 12 declares that the mineral wealth and oil and gold and everything else is public domain and belongs to the people of Venezuela. Now, I don't care if you call it socialism. I don't care if you call it capitalism. I don't care if you call it philatalism. I don't care what you call it. I know what good and evil is. I know what right and wrong is. And you can make that decision for yourself. I can't make it for you. But given what we know about our government, given what we know that they have done in the past, from the Bay of Pigs to the invasion of Panama, the occupation of Iraq, the illegal occupation of the West Bank, right down the list, right down the line, this playbook has been run time and time and time again. And when are, my question, the people of the United States going to wake up and realize there is a tiny, tiny group of criminals, and I mean a very tiny group of criminals, way out here on the East Coast, residing in the District of Columbia, that have used money, have used their friends in the media, their friends in Hollywood, to make the people of the United States believe something that isn't true. It's what they do. There is a certain military in the world that says, by deception thou shalt make war. And I think a lot of you know who that is. This is who the enemy of the American people is. Right out here on the East Coast. It's not the people of Venezuela. It's not evil, terrible, horrible socialism, because we live under it every single day. And in some ways it's bad, and in some ways it's good. It protects some, and sometimes it's not great for business. But it is how the U.S. operates. Thank you very much for putting up with me for these 20 minutes. Any questions, please feel free to ask. We have had a lot of people come to the little button at the homepage that says join. We do psychological operations training, the Florida Maquis does, to give you an insight into how these criminals in Washington, D.C. are able to do what they do. The logic fallacies and the cognitive biases that exist in all people, that they are taking advantage of to make you believe something that is not true. This issue with Venezuela is just the most recent example. They want you to believe that Colombia is, this wonderful place and they're our allies, and the people of Colombia are good people, but they know this about their government as well. Same thing with the people of Brazil. There are forces in this world, and they're small, but they're wealthy and powerful. And when we can stand up and shine the light of truth on them, they will scurry back into their holes like the little rats they are. But they have to maintain control so that we don't do that. They have to maintain their illusion so that we don't do that. Please share this as much as you can, and if you have the ability to, for $5 a month. And I don't have any control over that, by the way. YouTube determines what the price is for the channel membership thing is. So, would love to have you there. Like, share, subscribe.